Welcome to Mind Body Besties, your weekly reset with real talk, a little laughter, and the kind of honest conversations you'd have with your closest friend. I'm Katie, a therapist.
And I'm Rachel, a naturopathic doctor. We're here to share the personal stories, struggles, and wins that have shaped our own health and happiness. This isn't a lecture, it's a safe space to slow down, connect, and feel a little more human again. So grab your coffee, get cozy, and let's reset together. Hello, everyone. We're talking about vaccines today. This is going to be different than your typical convo because Katie and I are both neither anti or pro-vaccine. We are all about everyone making their own choice based on having all the information. We're about informed consent, I feel like is how you would say it.
Yeah. And so before you cancel us and say that we don't know what we're talking about, we shouldn't be talking about this, I encourage you to listen with an open mind because we're going to go over both sides and give some science behind things, give some personal stories and some personal viewpoints. So just don't cancel us yet. Just listen.
I love it.
If you hate us after, you can cancel us, but not yet.
There's truly so much nuance. You know, this is one of those things where I feel like people take a black and white stance and it's like, this is a gray area. There's a lot of nuance here.
Right. And so why are we even talking about this today? Well, one, the whole thing with the Hep B vaccine being pushed back on the schedule has gotten everyone either really excited or really upset. And just vaccines in general, since I would say COVID, have just become a really hot topic. And lots of people are afraid to talk about it because people are getting canceled for saying they're pro or anti. So that's why we're talking about it today.
Yeah. And I think if we know the science and we look at how it actually affects people, not just, what is the conventional med standpoint or what is the natural standpoint, what's actually going on, then everyone can make the decision that's best for themselves. I do feel like vaccines are, in general, they're just kind of a weird thing because you're deciding for someone else. Your kid can't make the decision for themselves. So you as the parent are choosing it for your kid. So it's always going to be a little bit of a gray area because you're making a life decision for someone else.
Yeah. And I never thought about it until I had a kid and we went to her first few checkups and they're like, okay, we give these vaccines at these appointments. And I will say the first pediatrician we went to, you had to sign a form that said, we will do all of these vaccines at the recommended schedule or we get kicked out of the practice. And I really didn't like that because I don't think anyone else gets to make that decision for my kid. Me and my husband do, but no one else gets to. And then now we have a more holistic, open-minded pediatrician, and he is neither pro-vax or anti-vax. He will explain things to you and let you decide. And I really appreciate that because if I feel pressured into doing something, I'm probably just going to leave.
I love it. The rebel in you.
Right.
Protecting you.
It's like when you tell a little kid, don't do that, they really want to do it. If you tell me I have to do something just because you have this authority, which really you have no authority over me. You are a doctor and that's great. But don't tell me what to do.
Present the info and let me make my own decision. Yeah. And in general, I think a lot of people don't know about herd immunity. So if we all were to say, in the world that we live in right now, do I feel like I truly need MMR? Is there really a lot of measles, mumps, and rubella going around? And it's no, but I think people forget that part of why we are in that space is because we do currently have 80% herd immunity. So we'll talk about that, what that means, how the vaccine schedule was developed for probably what does not match our current clean environment with parents who can take off time from work and take their kid in a lot. So let's dive in. When we're not going to talk about vaccines and autism today. That's a whole nother thing. We're going to focus on just overall info with vaccines.
Right. Yeah. If you're waiting for that, we're not going to talk about it. So sorry.
And we're not going to dive super deep into the COVID vax. We're talking about the different, schedules and what actually can happen from vaccines and how they could help. And so you can make your own decision.
Right.
So go ahead, Katie.
Yeah. So let's start with just the current schedule in the US. Why is it that some people are so like hardcore, I'm following this to a T? Or why does our healthcare system say this is exactly what you should do?
Yeah. When Katie and I were chatting about this, we were like realizing that there's really two different camps here where you have the public health opinion and then you have the personal health opinion. And then beyond that, you also have the schedule that was created primarily assuming that a lot of people who couldn't miss work or were really working class or something were not going to take their kids in for every single appointment. So the schedule was even intended, the way it was created was assuming that some parents would not bring their kids in for every appointment. And so they're like, well, if we're not going to see your kid until they're 3, then even though their immune system isn't fully developed and they can't even fully receive this vaccine or react to this vaccine in the way we want, we're going to give it to them now just so they have like something, like a 1% chance of it helping them.
Yeah, so more of like a while you're here, let's go ahead
Yes.
and do all this stuff because we don't know when we'll see you again.
Yes. And I feel like nowadays people are a lot more conscious about vaccines and like, can take off work and like take your kid in multiple times.
Yeah. I mean, I will say there's something that just, I have a gut feeling that something seems off when you're taking your 3-month-old baby in and they want to give them 3 shots. Because what I
Yeah.
didn't know until, I started looking at the vaccines was in each shot, there's more than one vaccine. Like the DTaP is what diphtheria, tetanus, and pertussis. So there's 3 different things in it. And that's how they make a lot of the vaccines today. So it's not so many shots for your kid, but they're still getting a lot put into their body that their little
Yeah.
3-month-old immune systems are supposed to react to. And so that's something that's always seemed, it makes me a little bit uncomfortable. I would rather go every few weeks or once a month and get them spread out. That just seems better in my opinion. But okay, so
Yeah.
Rachel, is there any benefit to spacing them out, or is it just worthless to be giving them at 3 months old? What's the deal with the
Yeah.
baby immune systems?
This is where I had an amazing immunology professor. She was on like some of the government committees for all these like immunological infections and vaccines and stuff. And she did a really good job of explaining to us that it really is like that public health standpoint. Like you don't have the immune system as a newborn to even form the lifelong antibodies that would protect you for a lot of these vaccines when you're young. And so, for example, like the MMR, instead of giving that at a really young age, that's the measles, mumps, rubella, that in the alternate schedule, which we'll talk about, is recommended to be given at 3 years because that's when you can handle it without it causing any big reactions to your immune system because it's such a strong vax. And that one has 3 in it as well. And then you actually have the immune capability to make the antibody memory cells to fight that off. And it is generally viewed that, yes, spreading them out is way better by at least about a month if you can, 3 weeks minimum.
Okay, yeah. And so giving the MMR at such a young age, I think it's 12 months when they want to give the first one, is more of like a let's go ahead and give it now on the off chance that there is some like measles outbreak, then your kid will probably be okay. Versus looking at it like, well, it's probably the most beneficial and will work the best if we wait until they're 3. But then that's taking the chance that before the age of 3, they're exposed to mumps, measles, or rubella and they get it and die or something.
That's the
horrible happens.
idea. Yeah. I can't remember for that one specifically, but overall, that's the idea is like if you get it now when you're 1, maybe you only get like 15% benefit. And they're like, cost benefit. And this is where informed consent is important because everyone else is going to have a different cost benefit analysis. So it's
Sure.
like everyone's an individual. And so it's like, okay, so the cost is MMR, any of these vaccines has the potential to increase your risk of chronic illness and autoimmune disorders and like it's going to be a burden on your immune system to fight this. There's excipients in the vaccine. Every vaccine has something that is, quote, bad in it on purpose to, it's the adjuvant. It's stimulating your immune system to tag the thing as bad that was put in with it.
Mm-hmm.
So it's like, okay, there's going to be something that's, quote, bad in it for your body. And then it's like, is the risk worth it of what might happen if you do get measles, mumps, rubella, and then how much protection would, one kid might be 15%, one kid might get 60% from getting it at one, because everyone's immune system is going to be so different.
Right. And I think there's a lot of fear mongering on both sides. There's that if your kid doesn't get this vaccine when they're supposed to get it according to the schedule, either A, they're going to get this illness and die, or they're not going to contribute to herd immunity and they're going to play some part in getting someone else sick and that person's going to die. And then there's the other side that says, like, don't get any vaccines because you will be one of this small portion of the population who has a horrible adverse reaction.
Right.
And then you're going to die because you got the vaccine. And
right.
I really feel like people are that extreme about it sometimes. And they really just fearmonger people. So when I hear other parents like, I don't know what we're doing, I don't know what to do, I'm afraid to give them the vaccine and I'm afraid to not give it to them.
Yeah.
It's because both sides are trying to scare everyone to death. And it doesn't need to be that way.
Yeah. Yeah. And I feel like the motivation, like the reason behind it is like, I think the government comes out really strong with the public health standpoint because there have been amazing, I mean, smallpox and polio are like basically gone. Like we have developed herd immunity and you can actually eradicate infections if you have enough protection against them. And so like objectively, so many fewer people die today than they used to. And so many kids used to die before age 5. And that's why the average lifespan was so much shorter, like in the 30s or something. There actually, people were living almost as long as they do nowadays, but so many children were dying. So it's like now we live in like such a more clean society. We have so many more options. We have, treatments if someone does get sick. So it's like a different like landscape. So we need to adjust for that. But I do think that the government is overly public health. Everyone must get this or you will die. And like they push that. There's probably a big pharma part of that. I mean, they definitely get funding from these vaccine companies. And also, there are a lot of people out there that have beliefs that there's nanobots in all the vaccines, that the vaccines were purposely intended to harm people. And that was their only creation reason. And that the government is putting fluoride in the water to kill people instead of help with like, dental health.
Yeah.
So there's like that population that has that health view. And so I feel like they were trying to combat that. But nowadays, like we just want like, I feel like more people can live in the gray space. Like we want like all the information so we can decide.
Yeah. I want to hear both extreme sides and I want to hear the stuff in the middle so that I can figure it out for myself.
Yeah.
So what do you say to the people? Like a big argument I always hear is, well, these have been highly studied for however many years, and there's no proof that they could be harmful in any way. And I believe in science.
Right.
What do you say to those people?
I feel like science shows let's do this the immunologically correct way. And like, how does your immune system actually work? And also taking into account herd immunity. But like the big thing here is like vaccine adverse events are only voluntarily reported. So there is no science to fall back on with these vaccines. Like, sure, we can look at overall, like what has been reported, but it's kind of like, in my view, cancer takes 20 years to develop. Most people have their first cancer cell 20 years before they get their diagnosis. So like with these vaccines, it's like, if someone gets an autoimmune condition when they're 15 because their immune system was provoked every time they got a vaccine to be in a heightened state. And that ended up causing their body to have this aberrant dysfunctional immune system response. It's like, how are we correlating that 20-year-old getting rheumatoid arthritis to the MMR vaccine they got when they're 1. Like, it's all part of the bigger picture. So it's so hard to connect it.
Yeah. And if anyone is interested, you can go to the VAERS website and look at the adverse events being reported, I believe.
Yeah. And that's hard too, because it's like, did you eat something with food poisoning that day? Or, so like, there's no exact science to fall back on. So it's like, I'm all for science, but let's stop saying that these funded, biased research studies are science. Like, we need to do real research studies.
Yeah. There is do you know who Emily Oster is?
No.
So she's an economist. I can't remember which university she taught at, but she basically is like a health economist now. And she wrote a book called Expecting Better. It's super popular. She was actually just on a podcast that I was listening to. And all she really does is collect data about the biggest questions that parents have and that pregnant people have. Like, can I eat sushi when I'm pregnant? Or do vaccines cause autism or any other adverse events? And all the way to like, can I get Botox when I'm pregnant? And she gathers all of the data that she can find, and then she compiles it, synthesizes it, and basically like gives you a risk assessment for these things. And one of them is vaccines. And when I heard that, I was like, ooh, all right, let's see what she says. And she basically said the data shows that there's no real risk to these vaccines, blah, blah, blah. And not that I don't believe her, I fully believe that the data she collected says that. But my first question was, who funded the studies? Who did the studies and who funded them?
Yeah.
Because the people that are not big pharma are not the people funding these studies most of the time.
Yeah.
They don't have the money. And if big pharma, like if Pfizer is going to sponsor and fund your study, is it going to get published if it shows that like they suck? Probably not.
That's another thing people don't realize. How many studies are well done that still get rejected?
Yeah. Oh, okay. This is important. So I like to be super transparent. My daughter has some vaccines, but not all of them. Some we're pushing off, some we're not going to do, some we did do. But because she is not totally up to date, according to the CDC, every couple months, I get a call from the Arkansas Department of Health, and it says sponsored by Pfizer. And it says, did you know your child is not up to date? And says a bunch of stuff. And at the end, it says sponsored by Pfizer. And every time, and I get a letter in the mail too. And Logan loves to just put that letter on the counter and wait for me to see it. And every time it's like instant rage. Like, why? Stop bothering me. Why are you're so upset that you didn't get paid because my daughter didn't get your vaccine?
That's really weird that it's sponsored by Pfizer. That's so blatant.
Pfizer.
Yeah.
It is. And it really, the first time I got one, I did feel bad. I was like, I'm a shit mother.
I'm feeling her. I'm neglecting her. Yeah.
I'm horrible. They're going to come take her away. And then I was like, no, this is ridiculous. The sponsored by Pfizer just really got me. And I don't know if it's that way in every state. Arkansas is very conservative. But yeah, we get one every couple months.
No, I mean, even in states like Oregon and Washington and California, it's very pro-vaccine. And like, I'm sure it'd be the same thing. And I think too, like pharmaceutical companies, including the ones that make vaccines, they have PACs and other ways of directly funding, candidates, congressional candidates who say that they're pro-vaccine. And so they're literally influencing elections. They're getting people that have drastic views or are going to push a certain agenda. And they have so much money for lobbying. So they're in everyone's ear every day with that kind of pamphlet info saying, babies are dying because they're not getting this.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, it's like if we're going to do the science, there is no science. Really, like we would need, randomized controlled studies are what's the gold standard in research. And you would have to have a placebo group, which is considered unethical for vaccines. And so most of the trials that are out there just use active controls comparing one vaccine against another vaccine, which isn't truly regarded as a good way to evaluate an outcome. And we can't just use observational studies because the reporting to the VAERS system is optional. And then these studies that have been done, even the ones that are comparing one vaccine to another, even if they're sponsored by a government, they're usually still, you can usually trace back some influence to some pharmaceutical company that is making these vaccines. We do have some studies that are independent. Like there was a study back in 2010 saying that the combo of MMR and varicella, which is chickenpox, together did increase the risk of febrile seizures in kids, like getting a fever and getting a seizure. And so like there are studies out there like that. And at this point, it's like hard to even tell, you know, a lot of the people who are going to bother researching things that go against the vaccine agenda have a personal bias, like their kid got autism shortly after getting a vaccine or something. And so did they have bias going into it? Like there's so much to wade through with all this data.
Yeah, it's hard to tell. You know, it's the whole correlation versus causation thing.
Yeah.
How are we even going to prove that this caused that? It's going to take a lot of time. But so, yeah, there are these like two camps of people just yelling at each other all the time. And so
yeah,
if you want to fall in the middle and make your own decision and be pro-informed consent, what are some of the best resources to look at?
Yeah, I like the vaccine friendly plan. It's a modified and delayed schedule. Actually, the book I think is called Dr. Paul's Vaccine Friendly Plan. So that one is really helpful because it's based on actual immunological research, like what's your tolerance, what's your response, what's your risk. I'm curious for you, Katie. I know you mentioned Hep B. Like, what do you see people talking with about that one?
So the biggest argument that I've heard on both sides is, one, there are a bunch of medical professionals saying like, just because the mother doesn't have Hep B when they're giving birth. If the mother has Hep B when they're giving birth, absolutely vaccinate that kid. But that would be super high risk. And that, to me, that makes total sense. Great. Yes, vaccinate that baby.
Yeah.
But if the mother doesn't have Hep B, basically these doctors are saying that doesn't matter because say that your kid is playing with another kid and you can have Hep B without having any symptoms yet. And so that kid unknowingly somehow has Hep B and they bleed on the playground and your kid also has an open cut and their blood comes in contact with that kid's blood and now they have Hep B. And I'm like, okay, you're not wrong. That could happen, but the chances of that happening are very small. So there's people that fall into that camp, like absolutely take no risk, get the vaccine when they're born. And all we've done is pushed it back a few months. So the chances of it happening to me seem low. But then there's the other side that's like, why would I vaccinate my kid when I don't have Hep B? I know I don't have Hep B. They're going to be fine. And they could always get the vaccine later. You can get that vaccine at any time. And so they're like, why would I get it when they're fresh out of the womb? I don't want to do that. So they're rejoicing that they're not being, you know, pushed into getting this vaccine. And then the other people are like, this is a huge loss for, you know, our entire healthcare system. And it's so extreme. And to me, I'm like, guys, they pushed it back a few months.
They didn't eliminate it. Yeah, that is.
If you want it, you can still get it. And also, if you so strongly believe it and your kid gets the Hep B vaccine, I think it's at 1 month old, or is it at birth or 1 month old? I can't remember. Whatever. Then why are you so afraid of the kid that doesn't have it yet? Your kid now won't get Hep B. So I don't know. I see it from the herd immunity, public health standpoint, but then also I'm like, I don't know.
I know.
It's so extreme. So extreme.
Yeah. And I feel like we should let's dive into the herd immunity a little more because I feel like that, for me personally, like that's the only reason I think that it would matter to care about whether other people get vaccines or not. I feel like Hep B in like a child whose mom is negative for Hep B is like almost unnecessary in our society. Like,
Right. If we
pretty
were
much,
living
unless there's extenuating circumstances, like you said.
And if we were living in a third world country or going to visit one, or like we were still living outside in huts in the dirt, like, okay, but we're not.
Right. This is where I feel like we need to really look at like immunologically, what do we actually need and what's the cost versus the benefit? Because I think what happens is people that are very much in the pro-vax camp, they think there's no real risk to vaccines. And so it's like, why not? Like they're totally safe. So why wouldn't everyone just get them?
Sure.
And it's like, you have to remember there is a real risk. You are introducing an antigen, even if not all vaccines are live, like some of them are, it's a dead antigen. So theoretically, you can't get the actual infection, but you can still have a full blown immune response to the infection and it could kill you. They think
Yeah.
SIDS is associated with that too.
Yeah, yeah. I've heard that SIDS, and if you read the inserts, which I did go and read the inserts from the companies that made the vaccines, SIDS is listed on all of them.
Yeah.
And people are even saying that's not true. And I'm like, well, Pfizer even said it could happen. Is there a huge chance of it happening? No, maybe not, but it could. It's happened to someone. So they had to put it on there. And the biggest vaccine side effect that I've heard about in babies is like uncontrollable crying for like over 24 hours. And it's because they're showing it's because their brains got inflamed.
Yeah.
And that is so sad to me.
It is so sad. That has lasting impacts. That's not nothing.
Yeah, I will say I don't remember which vaccine Ivy got, but she came home and about 6 hours later just like was not feeling great and she like threw up everywhere.
Yeah.
And then I felt bad. And is that as bad as crying for 24 hours? No. But
Yeah.
it does make you feel bad. And just like an adult, I got the COVID vaccine. I got one. It made me feel like shit. Like I felt like I had COVID the next day. So you know, is that the
Yeah.
worst thing in the world? No. But it does show that like it's not without side effects.
For sure. Like the point of vaccines is to give you like memory immune cells so
Mhm.
that if you see this, like you're not going to get wiped out by something that's new. And so your immune system would be naive to it. And so if vaccines work at all, which we know they do, then it's because you do mount an immune response to them. So
Mhm.
every time you get a vaccine, you are mounting an immune response, which isn't nothing. That's a big deal because you are pushing your immune system. And I don't think every kid can handle that. And you are introducing an adjuvant. There's always the adjuvant in there.
Yeah.
And it's usually in there at concentrations that even our own government says is toxic and like potentially causes encephalitis, inflammation of the brain.
Mhm.
And we're giving it in there inside in an injection. Like that's way, way stronger than just oral exposure.
Yeah.
So this is where it's like everything has a pro and a con. It does have a risk and a benefit. And like I think it's real to acknowledge the real benefit of, yeah, you are less likely to die or lose your hearing or get sterility where you're like lose your fertility. Like if you do
Mhm.
get protected from these, but also you are more likely to have issues and you're more at risk. And like there's a lot of newer doctors who are looking at the numbers and just putting their lived experience with patients out there about the correlation between different vaccines and different autoimmune conditions. Like,
Yeah.
like the Gardasil vaccine for HPV is being highly associated with certain autoimmune conditions, that kind of thing.
Right. I remember so many girls were getting that when we were in like, I think it came out when we were like middle school, maybe high school. And even my dad, who is very like, I believe the science, was like, that might be good, but it's so new. I'm not good. You don't need to get that. I want to see what happens with this before. And also, like, I wasn't sexually active at that time. And so why give it? I think he also was like, well, when you're 18, if you want to go get it, go get it. But I also with the newer vaccines am very much like, I'm going to watch that and I'm going to wait Because with the COVID vaccine, I mean, it wasn't perfect and they had to push it out so fast. And like, did it save people's lives? Absolutely. There were lots of
Yeah.
old people that would 100% have
Oh,
died
yeah, for sure. Yeah.
if they didn't get vaccinated. And I fully realized that. But okay, so
But did it also have a lot of adverse events? Yeah. Yeah.
yeah, it did.
Yeah. Yeah. And
So
back to like our thing would be like, our thing with that would be, was there proper informed consent? And could there even have been proper informed consent with
no way.
how rushed it was,
No. And they were doing the best they could as fast as they could because it was a whole pandemic. And so good, we needed that. But also, the people that were really, really low risk maybe could have waited. Would I rather, if I were 80 years old with a weakened immune system, would I rather have some adverse event from the vaccine or would I rather die from COVID? Probably just take my chances with the vaccine.
Yeah.
But as what was I, 26? No, I don't know, however old I was, 20 something.
28 or 29. Yeah.
28 or 29. I wish.
Something.
As a perfectly healthy upper 20s person with no immune issues, was I super worried about it? No, I wasn't. Did I go visit my dad before I was vaccinated? No, because he's old and not in very good health. So, and even he was like, don't come visit me. Like, and I said, okay, so you can still take precautions until you decide what you want to do.
Yeah.
What about for you? Because you do have a lot
I am
of
immunocompromised. Yeah, I do have my genetic immunodeficiencies. So I got the pneumonia vaccine because my Crohn's doctor is like, anyone with autoimmune conditions should get this. And I had pneumonia multiple times. Like every time after I would get sick, I would get pneumonia after I'd get a cold or a flu. I have not had pneumonia since I got that vaccine. So like clearly, like for me, that was a good cost benefit. Would I have gotten it if I was in a flare, like an autoimmune flare? No. Like that would be, I don't think there was any consideration for that on my doctor's part. It was more just like, you need this because you have Crohn's. But like, again, from an immunological standpoint, why would you introduce an antigen with an adjuvant that's going to spark an immune response into an already hyperactive, dysregulated immune system?
Right.
So like, I think it's all about, like timing and stuff. I think for me, it's like, I think we need to consider all sides. I look at herd immunity. I look at the fact that I don't have to deal with when I reach 65 and my vaccines wear off and my immune system can't make good responses to vaccines anymore. Am I going to get a terrible, infection from someone who, is spreading something because they didn't get a vaccine? And then am I going to have like impairment for the rest of my life from that because I didn't have, the ability to respond to that with my immune system? Being immunocompromised, like it's really nice to live in a society where 80% of people are vaccinated. And so there is herd immunity. Like how much would that suck if we had to worry about smallpox again? Like that would
be
really
really bad.
suck. Yeah. And so I think we kind of take it for granted because we're looking at the landscape now. We're looking at the landscape with current herd immunity. If we lose our herd immunity, the landscape will change. So in an ideal world, I do think that there is some level of vaccination. And I think that if everyone had the right information and if we all were acting from a point of like, I care about my own health, I'm going to do what's right for me. And also I do care about my neighbors and my friends and my family. So like, I'm going to consider everyone. And like someone who could handle getting that vaccine would probably get it. So they could be one of the 80%. And I think there are too many. It's like, do we really need 3 or whatever MMR vaccines? Like the first time, it's like, it's actually kind of like the Gardasil you were talking about. Like the reason they start so early is because technically you need the 3rd shot and has to be spaced out like, I don't know, 6 months or a year in between each one. And technically you don't have 100% optimal protection until after the 3rd one. Right. But even just after the first one, you probably already have 70% protection. And then after the second one, you have 90. And it's like cost benefit. The Gardasil is very immune stimulating. We think it might increase autoimmune conditions. Would it make sense to just do 1 or 2? So it's like, I think it needs to be looked at so differently. And a really big thing for me, and this has always come up just as someone who's like very philosophical, is like freedoms to versus freedoms from.
Yeah.
Like I have the freedom to not put, the MMR vaccine in my body or in my child's body if I had a kid. But also, as someone existing in society, I would like to think I have the freedom from getting unnecessary suffering from diseases that could have been controlled or eradicated
Hmm.
because someone else wasn't doing their part to contribute to society.
Yeah.
It's hard.
It's a hard balance. And like when I got the COVID vaccine, I didn't get it for me. I got it for my dad and for older people in my family because I would not have been okay if like I had given him COVID and he died.
Gosh, yeah.
So I got it for him, not for me. And also I don't, at least to my knowledge, don't think I've ever had any issues from any vaccines. But I do know people who have. I know quite a few people who have gotten the COVID vaccine and then not so long after developed POTS.
Yes, that is me too. I was one of them.
Yeah. And so if I'm that person, like, am I going to get another COVID shot? No, I'm not. I'm
Yeah.
absolutely not. But I'm not that person. So if I needed to get another one, like I could.
Yeah.
Let's also quickly talk about like there are so many more vaccines on the schedule than there used to be. And
Yeah.
also like what other countries are doing, like European countries.
Yeah. Yeah. Cause I think that, when we were looking at that, it's like we do have so many. And I just remember learning in my immunology class that the main reason, like the primary reason that the chickenpox vaccine was added to the schedule was because data showed that parents were missing work due to their kids being sick. Not that the benefit outweighed the risk, because chickenpox doesn't have a very deadly profile. So, is stimulating your immune system and introducing this adjuvant worth it? No, unless we look at the greater GDP of the United States.
Right? Yeah. I mean, because yeah, if you get the chicken pox, like you're down for the count for like a week. You can't go to school. And so I get it. There are some parents who do not have a choice. They have to go make money for their family. They cannot miss work. Okay, give your kid the chicken pox vaccine.
Yeah,
I get that.
personal informed consent.
But like my parents, I stayed at home with my grandma most of the time. I didn't get the vaccine because I got the chicken pox right before the vaccine came out. And so I had the chicken pox. It sucked. My parents literally have photos of me naked in the backyard, covered in chicken pox, screaming, crying.
Oh, Katie.
I don't know why they have those pictures of me, but they do. They do.
Oh my gosh.
And I survived. I also did not get the pneumonia vaccine. I don't know if I just didn't get it or if it wasn't out yet when we were little. I got pneumonia twice and it sucked. I was pretty sick. I was also fine
Yeah.
because I was a healthy little kid with no issues.
And you know what's interesting is our generation, we're right at the line of when the chickenpox vaccine came out. So like I got the vaccine as a baby and I never had the wild type chickenpox from another kid.
Mhm.
And research actually shows that with immunosenescence, your immune cells functioning less over time, people in our generation and younger who got the vaccine and never got actual chickenpox are now getting chickenpox when their kids get chickenpox, and the chickenpox is harder on the adult. And so because the protection isn't lasting super long for some people. So yeah, it's like, are we looking at the whole picture? And for me, like, now knowing that I have all this immune stuff, I would wish that I had better antibodies. So when I was more healthy as a kid, it would have been nice to have those antibodies probably from the wild type.
Yeah. And with other countries, I looked up what the schedule was in Denmark, or no, Sweden. It was Sweden. Sorry. I think Denmark might be the same, but in Sweden, and they do have fewer vaccines. They don't have rotavirus. They don't have chickenpox. They don't, not that they don't have them. They're not on the schedule as ones that you really should get. And so I know everyone always hates it when people are like, well, they do it different in Europe and they're fine, but they do it different in Europe and they seem okay. So I'm not saying that what they're doing is better necessarily, but
Yeah.
other countries do different things, and people in Sweden seem pretty healthy.
And we do have such more spacing out. We're all live in our own homes. We have clean water. We have
Hmm.
clean bathrooms. Like we are in a different time. So I think it would be worth like, re-looking at things. And in an ideal world, knowing what I know about genetics and the immune system, I think everyone would get HLA tested. And like the 2% of the population whose immune HLA functioning is really low and they're called multi-susceptible, which I'm in that lovely 2%. And it means you're super susceptible to every infection. And it also means you do react really poorly to vaccines and stuff. Like it would be like, maybe those kids, those are probably the kids that get autism. Those are the kids that get juvenile rheumatoid arthritis. Like maybe those kids would not get the vaccines or they would get some later.
Hmm.
And like maybe people who have a selective immunodeficiency or they're not even making the antibodies that we need to make a response to the vaccines, like maybe they wouldn't get them right away. They would start IVIG therapy or they would like not get them. So I think it's all about like, if we looked at it from a community perspective, that's one thing. And at the end of the day, like I don't think you can tell anyone, I don't think you should force anyone to do anything with their body.
I don't either. I am definitely one of those people that's like, okay, please give me all the information, but you're not going to tell me what to put in my body or not put in my body. You
Yeah.
just don't get to tell me what to do. And that might sound selfish or like conceited. And it's not coming from that place. Like I've gotten vaccines for other people, but like you don't get to tell me what to do. I am my own person. And that's not fair because
Yep.
not everyone else in the world has access to the information we have access to. We are both very privileged. Not everyone is that privileged. Not everyone has the time or the space to figure all this stuff out. And so
Yeah.
it's just really unfair to force people or make them think they have to do something when they don't.
Yeah. Yeah. And having the big picture personally, my stance is like if I were to have a kid right now, I would opt for a delayed, immunologically based
Hmm.
like schedule that takes into consideration their specific risks and their specific immune capability. I would space out the shots as much as possible and I wouldn't combo them. I would sometimes you can ask for the single vial preservative free instead of the cheaper multi vial ones with preservatives. I would see if I can find a clinic that does those and I'd pay out of pocket or more for them.
Hmm.
And I would be really conscious of like what adjuvants and how much and don't do any ones that both have a single adjuvant really close so you're not getting a high dose of that metal. And I wouldn't have a cookie cutter approach. Like if I had multiple kids, they might each need a different schedule. So that's probably
Hmm.
what I would do.
Yeah. And I mean, what I've done basically is like a combination of skipping some of them that I don't think are the most necessary and spacing them out. I just basically used all the information you gave me and did some of my own research and was like, okay, this is what I think is best. And even if you look at like on the CDC website, if you really look at the schedule, it will give recommendations, it will give contraindications. So I'm not saying like don't trust the CDC website. Go look. There's a lot of information. The biggest issue is that when you step into your doctor's office, they just say, here's what they're supposed to get today and don't give you any information. And I I realize doctors are overloaded. They don't have time to spend an hour with every patient. And that's the fault of the system.
Agreed.
And we need to also, like, as a parent, if that is the system and that's the way things are, we're not going to change it overnight. So I encourage you to go do your own research because your doctor's not going to do it for you.
Yeah, I like that. And I mean, it sucks, but it's the reality of the system we live in because we live in a for-profit medical system. And
Hmm.
so if it's not going to take into consideration like what is truly in the best health interest, it's what generates the most profit and, what's the easiest and the shortest time to dispense. And it's going to be like, what's the most cookie cutter thing?
Yeah.
So I
And
feel
if
like it's
you don't,
hard.
it is hard. And if you don't like your doctor, like find a new one.
That's the
It's
moral of
okay.
every story we have. If You don't like your doctor, get another one.
Go get a new one. If they say, if any practice had any sort of thing like vaccines, whatever it was that said, if you don't do what we say, you can't come here anymore, you're getting kicked out, I would never go there because that's crazy.
That's
like
forcing a cookie cutter. That's not individual care.
Then I'm like, okay, who's your Pfizer rep? Who's your buddy that's getting you kickbacks? That's what that says to me. Or like, we're just lazy and too afraid to break the mold. I don't know. So I would never do that. So I would find, if you can, any doctor that at least if they don't agree with you says, okay, it's your choice.
Yeah.
Like, at least have someone who will let you make your own decisions. You can find that person. You might not find the person that's like, here's all the research. Here's everything you should read. Here's what I would do with my own kids. Just find someone that will say, okay, not what I would do, but okay.
I know. And again, like that puts the burden of knowledge and education on us. But like, honestly, in our US setup, that is the only way to get the best care and advocate for yourself is to assume that knowledge burden yourself. Like, and you can have resources that help. And like, hopefully this podcast is a helpful resource for a lot of people. But ultimately that is how it goes, is like, you have to know what is best for you in a way, which really does also suck because we also have so many other things to worry about in life besides having to learn all this health stuff.
Yeah. So we'll put all of the resources that we like in the show notes below so you can go look at those. And again, we're not telling you what to do. And just because we might do something a different way than you do, that's fine. Yeah. It does not bother me. You do whatever you want to do. But this is just the information that we think is helpful.
Yep. And at the end of the day, like what I like to do is think about, does this help my body? Is this being kind to my body? Does this like align with what I feel like my sole purpose or perspective is in the greater vision of things? And then if I do opt to receive a vaccine, then I don't want to show up with fear because that's going to make my nervous system react more poorly to that vaccine. So I would show up and be like, I receive this and welcome this into my body.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Yeah. All right. Well, thanks everyone for tuning in.
Yep. We'll catch you in the next one. Don't cancel us.
Thanks for joining us for another weekly reset. If you loved hanging out with us today, subscribe so you never miss an episode, and share this with a friend who could use a little calm and connection too. This show is for education and inspiration, not medical advice. To learn more or connect with us, check out the show notes below. Until next time, take care of your mind, your body, and your heart.